in approval a few times during Darren's training session then. What did you make of it? And yeah, for me, he looked so intimidating there. He was an intimidating fighter at 170 anyway, but then look at him now, it's really scary to see.
Well, this is the Darren Till without the concern about weight cutting. You know, the times that we've seen him previously this close to a fight, you can see in his face and in his body language that he's struggling a little bit. He's not enjoying himself as much. The best fighters are always the ones that are enjoying themselves. You know, you always see the fighters perform their best when they're in that kind of loose, comfortable flow state where there's nothing else on their mind other than fighting. And I think that's what we saw from Darren today. And there were some technical things that stood out. I mean, as a middleweight, he always hit very hard as a welterweight anyway, but it sounds to me like he's hitting really hard as a middleweight. Cutting angles really nicely, getting to the outside of Gastelum's lead hand, pressuring him all the time as well. So even when Colin had kind of turned and walk away, Darren was right on his heel, making sure that the pressure was still on. And that's the programming that Colin, I feel, was talking about, making sure that Darren's fighting at the pace that he wants to set. I've just always felt, you know, watching Darren's previous fights at welterweight, that his best years are always going to be at middleweight. And I feel like he took this in his stride today. He looked good, he looked confident, he had a good workout, got a sweat on. I'm confident that he's going to get on the plane to New York ready for this fight.
Even though we've seen both men showcase the most eye-catching moments on the feet with the stand-up, we've seen that Kelvin is a strong grappler himself. Do you think there's going to be a lot of grappling exchanges in this one that might surprise a lot of fans?
I think the smart thing for Kelvin to do would be to grapple. I think Darren would have watched his last fight against Masvidal back and realised that, you know, one of the reasons why he got caught is because Masvidal level changed and Till leant away and put his hands out. So I think if I'm Gastelum watching that fight, I'm throwing those things in just as a, you know, just as a question, just as a smokescreen to kind of, you know, hide everything else that I'm doing.
Throw off the break.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, the thing is with Gastelum, because he's set his southpaw as well, he wants to come over the top with that left hand. If he constantly keeps coming over the top, that's the only trajectory that Darren has to worry for. Whereas if he keeps level changing as well, there's a second narrative there to think about, which, you know, you have to choose one or the other. You know, do you defend the takedown when he's already on your legs, or do you defend the shot when it's already coming over your guard? I think it'd be the smart thing to do for Gastelum, but to be honest, I think this will be a boxing match.
When we talk about that, you know, getting in tight with the grappling, Till's Muay Thai is ridiculous. His clinch game is awesome. So, like you said, it might be in his best interest to get up tight, but then you also have the clinch game to worry about as well. So, a lot of weapons in the arsenal of both fighters, really.
Yeah, there are. And with Gastelum being the shorter fighter, you know, the Thai clinch is something he's got to watch out for. As you saw when Darren was hitting the pads today, he stands very high. He's very tall on his toes, which means that if you're the shorter fighter, especially if you've got a level change to come over the top, you're going to feel like he's the taller fighter. And you know, Darren's very good at bearing over people. So when they do level change, they're right there for that Thai clinch. You know, we saw him bringing that knee up the centre a few times today as well. So I think there's a lot of things for Gastelum to be concerned about if he does close distance in a straight line and too quickly. Gastelum's got to be smart about how he uses his angles, like he did against Bisping. You know, draw the first shot and then use his head movement to slip out the way and counter. But again, I mean, you know, what we saw from Darren on the pads today is that he's expecting those counters and he's working around them, countering counters, as you would expect from high-level strikers.
How pleased are you for a facility like this to have, come up and Nottingham?
I would have liked it about 15 years ago, I'll tell you that. Yeah, when we were training on squash court floors and that kind of thing. Yeah, it's amazing. You know, when I was first getting into mixed martial arts, to think that something like this will be in Nottingham one day, I'd never expected it. We were always making the most of boxing gyms with a few mats, or a bodybuilding gym here and there that had some equipment. So, like, to be able to walk into a gym like this that has everything that you want, I mean, this is a dream come true for an MMA fan and you know, a wannabe fighter, someone that's growing up in Nottingham, that maybe started Nottingham University and fancies to go at mixed martial arts. This is the place to come now.
And let's talk about some more British fighters. Obviously, we've seen Darren today, but we've got, you know, Rocky Edwards is on the win streak and all. You know, we've got a lot of fighters at the moment. Meatball Molly too. There's a lot of people doing well. Is this one of the best states that you've seen the UK in the UFC right now?
I think so. I think in previous years, and I don't mean to offend anybody by saying this, but I think we've had a lot of cannon fodder coming from the UK. I think we've had a lot of guys that had good fights and that were dangerous to some guys in the division, but now we've got guys that can be champion in the division. You know, Bisping cleared the way for that, getting that knockout of a Rockhold. But now you look at the guys that we've got. Obviously, Darren Till's up there. You know, Leon Edwards, Jack Shaw just joined the UFC, but he's going to be an absolute superstar in a few years. And then, you know, the guys that have been around, the Nathaniel Woods, the Brett Johns, the Darren Stewart, Molly McCann fighting this weekend as well. I think the standard's raised, and I think that with the standard raising, like all of the training partners in the gyms are getting better as well. So it's it's a constant growth pattern at this point, and it's nice to be able to sit back and watch all these guys coming through.
Do you think Edwards, should have had a title shot at this point?
I think the thing is when it comes to title shots, you can do enough of a win streak. You can get enough of a win streak to get a title shot, but if people don't want to watch the fight, that's the big thing. This is an entertainment industry, and I think what Leon's realising now is that the trash talk goes a long way. Every time Leon's asked a question, it's about the Masvidal fight backstage in the UFC. Those kind of things, they create a story, and people want to plug into that story. And I think the fact that Leon's now getting angry that he's being passed over for these opportunities is starting to bring his character out. And when we start to see him vocalise a bit more how he's feeling, people will want to see him fight more.
And then you know I am. We've got to get a breakdown of the BMF title between Jorge Masvidal, Nate Diaz. Just a breakdown and how you think the fight's going to play out and who you think's going to win.
Okay. Well, I actually just recorded the Inside the Octagon for this, so I'll try and give you the summarised version of it. I actually think it's going to be Diaz that's going to try and start faster in this one. If you go back into Diaz's career, you watch him against other strikers, obviously Pettis, his most recent one, but then go back to like Cowboy and Josh Thompson, guys that need a bit of space for their striking, he tends to pressure them quickly. He'll take a few shots to try and get his hands on them. So I think it's going to be Masvidal that's going to try and study and wait and kind of bide himself some time and look for the opportunities. Masvidal's great at exploiting predictabilities. If you do something consistently, like if you're Ben Askren, you always level change with your head to the left side, he's going to set you up perfectly for that. And he can either learn about you in that first round, like he did with Darren, or learn about you in the research before the fight even starts, like he did against Askren. And I feel like because there's so much of Nate Diaz to watch, and his game's not really changed a great deal. He's refined elements, but the predictabilities are still there. So I feel like Masvidal might come in with a good idea of what he wants to achieve, and I think Diaz wants to come into this one knowing he has to keep the pressure on him early so he doesn't get set up.